Hello and welcome to A Lonely Critic. My name is Anthony Renteria. I just got out of my screening for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I don't even know where to start with this movie. Alright, so existential questions aside. Okay, because in a lot of ways I feel like this movie poses a lot of questions that are interesting to me that I think most people I know don't care about or don't think about. So I don't know, but this is going out to this is going to the web, so there's probably an infinite amount of y'all who are interested in that aspect. I don't know if I'll dig into that side, honestly, because I'm still processing. So let's talk about the movie first. Okay, we'll talk about the actual craft and the film, and then maybe if I'm up to it, we can talk about the existential stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the movie. What is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once? I just got out of my screening for it, so my mind is reminiscent of the movie. It's everywhere, all at once right now. This movie was directed by Daniel Scheinert. I'm sorry, dude, I fucked up your name. And Daniel Kwan, duo directors known as the Daniels. So let's just get into what is the film about? Well, the film is about Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It's about this woman played by Michelle Yeoh, and she runs a laundromat with her husband, like your typical laundromat, and she lives a horrible life. Just the dead-end life that me and I assume countless of other Americans are currently living. Or people everywhere, honestly. People everywhere live. It seems like this is the norm to me. So if that isn't your norm, then consider yourself very lucky because you have an amazing, beautiful life. But for all the other of us who are working dead-end jobs, hating their fucking existence, this movie's about us. So, general gist of the film, and it's about a woman. She realizes that she's like the protagonist of this multiverse plotline. I mean, if you watch the trailer, you'll get it. I don't really want to talk about all that stuff because it's very technical, it's very detailed, scientific, and logical, and theoretical, and it's very expansive, and I consider myself one of the stupidest people I know. So I don't really have anything to add to that element of the film, but the film does go into the multiverse. I think in many ways, I feel like The Matrix, was like a definitive capstone to the idea of we all live in a simulation. Like, that like idea and that theory. It was, I would bet money it existed before The Matrix. But then once The Matrix came out, it became that cornerstone of, oh, like The Matrix. Oh, like The Matrix. Oh, like The Matrix. Like that becomes the defining film defining narrative of that idea. And I think what this film does, I think this film is going to be and is the defining multiverse narrative across all mediums that I know of that exist. And I think it's freaking amazing. So if you like multiversal stuff, if you hate your life, if you think you work a dead-end job and you are living the worst version of your life, then I think this film will be a great time. Or if you just love absurdity, if you love fun, if you like action, if you love comedy, if you love the insane, there's things in this film that I don't think I would have ever saw in any other film in my life. The film feels like a version of cinema that exists in a parallel universe. But the visuals of this film, let's start with the visuals. That's what I usually like to start with because that's what I'm the most obsessed with in cinema is the visuals. The visuals are amazing. One thing I want to point out is I love how they switched aspect ratios, and I assume they did a lot of lens changes. I'm not sure if they changed formats. There is some moments that appear to be film, but I'm not sure if they actually shot on film. I want to say they didn't, but if they did, I mean, that would be amazing. So just the way they used the visual element of this idea of this film is brilliant. This film encapsulates a lot of the things I say. Like I wish filmmakers and creatives would understand what their theme is, understand the ideas that they're trying to portray, and then get every single element to reinforce that. Have a collapsing domino effect of everything supports your idea. And this is one of the few films that I've seen feels like these two guys got it. They're like, all right, if we're gonna do this, we should use the visuals to reinforce it. And they do, and it's beautiful. The way it changes from aspect ratios, the visual change from each universe that we see is different, sometimes subtle, sometimes not subtle at all. I just love all that. And you can tell they're just having such a great time doing it. I haven't seen any of the other films by these two guys, but this is already just a brilliant piece of visual filmmaking. And just to lead off into that, the editing. I mean, this is probably one of the best edited films just because of the amount of technicality that they had to do to pull off some of these sequences, and to also pull off, like, this is one of those films where I think a lot of people are like, yeah, it's cool, it's fun, you know, whatever. I don't think a lot of people understand the amount of work had to go into making this make sense and then make it flow the way it did. And I mean, this goes for all the elements, the visuals, the editing, the score, the writing, the performances. I think to get this to work is an insane feat, and everyone in this team, in this operation that pulled this off, I mean, it feels, and I say this in the best way, it feels like a film made in someone's backyard, because it just feels so pure. And I think that is the most difficult thing to do in any medium of craft, is for it to feel like a pure imaginary state. Genius, because it's done in the visuals, it's done in the editing, and then I want to get into the sound design and the score. Also, I could tell, like, it frequently felt like there was a different sound designer, sound editor, making different sounds for each version of the film, or like throughout the film there were sounds I was like, but this actually would not make sense in the other version of the world, which is correct because it doesn't. But for a sound editor or the sound designers to pull that off, and then it still kind of makes sense while you're watching it, like, it never took me out of the film. But thinking in retrospect, I'm like, oh yeah, those sounds don't fit, you know, that those sounds are for like a kung fu movie, those sounds are for like a horror thriller, those sounds are for a rom-com. And I love the attention to detail that my hands are doing stuff, because I'm like thinking about the excitement that you would have as a filmmaker to be able to talk to your sound editors and be like, yeah, I want this to feel insane, like surprise me. Like I'm just like starting to fantasize about how these two guys felt being the filmmakers and how everyone felt making this movie. This feels like one of the most joyous experiences of filmmaking I've ever seen in my life. Like, just all the things that happen in this film, I think I would just be smiling, crying at the joy of making this picture. And I felt that watching it. I felt like a wannabe filmmaker being like, wow, this seems like the dream project. Like, it's just everything, everywhere, all at once, and it's so beautiful. So all the craft stuff is perfect. One last thing I want to talk about with the craft before we get into, I guess, what I thought of the narrative and the existential stuff. Michelle Yeoh, I mean, this has to be the best female performance that I've seen so far this year, and I hope it will stay that way for the rest of the year. Michelle Yeoh does just a beautiful job. I mean, she was seemingly born to play this character, and it's such a beautiful character and such an amazing way to perform it. And again, I think this film, a lot of people are going to watch this film and think it's just simplicity, even though it's chaos and it's strange and unique. I think a lot of people are just going to be like, oh, well, this is simple. Like, it is what, like, once you see something, it becomes possible. But I don't think people realize how impossible this would be on the page. Like, if I were to give you this script and you were to be like a mega producer, I'd be like, what the fuck are you going to do, man? Like, this, how is this going to work? You know, how are you going to pull this off? And I think Michelle Yeoh's performance is one of those things where everyone's like, oh, it's Michelle Yeoh, she's awesome, she's like the queen of all queens in our film world. But the subtleness at which she has to capture the main Evelyn that we see in the narrative, the simplicity that she has to perform Evelyn to make it make sense and to not lose us as a viewer. I think there might be a couple people who get lost in the weirdness of this whole piece. I think she does a beautiful job because she anchors the whole film with this main Evelyn, and then she still manages to perform every Evelyn differently, but not as a joke. I think that's what I'm wrapping my head around, is that you watch this movie and you're like, oh yeah, that was awesome. But the fact that it never breaks you and you're like, oh, she's just acting like a famous actress. She's just acting like a kung fu master. She's just acting like she's a 5-star chef or whatever variations that we see of her. But it never feels like that when you're watching it. And that is in my perspective, a very thin thread to walk on. I don't know why I'm doing with my hands. And I think she nailed it. Like, I think that's one of the most impressive things that I got out of the film, was that I was always anchored in, and I was always connected to her. I mean, there's films that have no magical realism or no sense of multiverses or anything spectacular, mind-breaking, and I'm like, oh, that's not how this person has been acting in this whole film. You know, like, there's breakage in performances, and for her to perform so many performances within one performance and then make them all feel like the same performance, but then also variations of the same performance. Like, every Evelyn felt like Evelyn. So I'm just thinking, as an actress, how I would think, or how she, as an actress, how she thought to anchor that is just a testament to her skill, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then also, Stephanie, I'm gonna mispronounce her name. Stephanie Sue. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I can't pronounce English. I apologize. But Stephanie is plays the daughter of Evelyn in the film. Also, beautiful performance, and it's like so much of the emotion is anchored on her that it sounds terrifying to me. Even like if I were to be directing, I would be scared. I'd be like, you have to nail this, because if you don't nail this, everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. All the weight is on you. And I've never seen her in anything. I'm sure what all the things she's been in, but for me to see a new performer and like everything is on your back, that's fucking stressful. And not only did I buy it immediately, but then again, and again, the fact that it's all anchored on a normal character from our normal plane of existence is spectacular. It's just a spectacular feat of performances. Same thing with God, I'm gonna mispronounce this name. Ki Hui Kwan. Dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But his performance as well was spectacular. All the performances of this film do exactly what I was talking about earlier with Michelle Yeoh. They're balancing themselves on a thread of realism, and then they're going into surrealism, but never making it feel fake. And that is, like I said, I already said, it's a spectacular feat. And it's specifically for Stephanie because the whole emotional crux of the narrative is dependent on her. And that's something I wasn't expecting, and I was like, fuck, that's crazy. But I guess we should talk about the existential stuff. Actually, I don't want to talk about the existential stuff. If I'm being honest, maybe I'll talk about that. It doesn't matter. Because nothing matters. But I love this film. I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of film. I will constantly be thinking about the ideas and the concepts that it's laid out. I mean, a lot of these things I've thought of many times, but to see it in a film is something spectacular. To see the nihilism, and then also to see the hope that this film portrays, because everything doesn't matter and nothing always matters. So it's like this perpetual conundrum, and it's something I've been feeling a lot because I'm just in such a weird, damaged emotional state in this weird point in my life where I have a lot of regrets and I have a lot of things undone and unsaid, and it's just like, I don't know, this film feels incredibly timely. There's not many people I'm like very connected to, but there is a few people that I have been connected to in my life that I feel like have been in the state that I'm in currently, which is like a state of perpetual anxiety and despair and hopelessness. And this film feels like it's almost crafted out of that feeling, but then it comes out on the other end of hope. And I think that is, again, it seems simple. I even thought it was simple. As the movie was ending, I was actually kind of frustrated because that film is so positive. And me thinking like, man, if I would have wrote this, it would have gone off the rails. I mean, this movie went off the rails, but I would have gone off the rails on a darker, more despairing side. And it's just so interesting seeing the hopeful version of that. And it's something like it almost feels cheesy, but it's not. You know, like I think there's two extremes of how you can think about existence. It's either very hopeful or complete dread. And I'm not sure if there's a middle ground. I think the only middle ground is people not thinking about it. Like people don't ever think about their limited existence. At least I don't see. I think that's probably a big problem in our society, is that no one talks about anything. No one talks about loneliness. No one talks about like depression or sadness. No one's like really real with anyone. Like I've always found the question so interesting, how people are like, oh, how are you? But people aren't really asking how are you. It's almost like small talk, kind of immediate, oh, I'm good, how are you? You know, like, but if you were really think about, like, what if we lived in a world where how are you is like literally like an investigation, like how are you doing today, Anthony? Like how is your life going? How are your hopes and dreams? You know, like you could go so deep, but everything's so superficial. And I think that just that example of how people ask, how are you doing? And then how people answer, oh, it's been a long year. You know, like I think that is just the funniest thing. It's like, I remember it was like January 3rd and someone was like, how are you doing? And I was like, oh man, it's been a long year. It's been 3 fucking days. It's been a long year. And just that, I don't know, there's like a comedy to it, but then it's also, it just shows the superficialness of all of us. Like we're all trying to hide our internal feelings, but there's like an aspect of me that thinks maybe everyone is just extremely thin. Like I think a lot of people, this might be a wrong perception. Maybe correct me, but I think a lot of people are just paper thin with how they think about their life and other people's lives and existence and inexistence. I don't think a lot of people think about that. Because why would you? It's fucking horrifying. It's debilitating. Every night, it's debilitating. So I don't blame anyone for asking that, but it's just an interesting thought. And this is why I didn't want to get into the ideas of it, because I think I'm just going to talk in circles and not really say anything, because there's nothing to really say. But I do like the hopefulness. I guess the one thing I want to say is that it's not something I liked watching it. I was very angry, very frustrated. Why is this movie going to end like this? I hate this. But then, now coming out the other end, I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's a great version of this film, even though maybe the deep, cynical, dark side of me wishes for something more perpetual darkness. But that's why I need to be a writer, you know? Like, that's why I'm gonna write that kind of shit. These guys don't have to write that shit. I'll write that shit. But I guess final closing thought, the rambling. So I don't really, I don't have any definitive thoughts about the message of the movie. Or you can go in the comments and maybe we could chat it out. I'm trying to make these shorter, but final thoughts. Okay. So, in ending, I love this movie. It's a brilliant exercise of ideas, ideologies, society, multiverses, existence, inexistence, dread, hope, loneliness, life, living, the human I think it's a perfect dissection of human nature. And such a fun, weird, odd film. It's so interesting that these guys can go so deep into absurdity, but then also have that emotionality. I think that's another thing that people are going to see as a simplicity. It's like, oh yeah, of course it's going to have this like beautiful emotional crux, but like that's not easy. I just watched a Michael Bay film and he tries very hard. He tries so hard to get emotion, and it never really works that well. So it's not easy. I promise y'all, writing is not easy. I can guarantee it is not easy. So this film pulled it off, in my opinion. I think it's a masterpiece. This year has already gone off on such a great start. It's mind-numbing. We had The Worst Person in the World, The Batman, Turning Red, and now Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, this is already one of the best years that I've seen in cinema. Just the original ideas and the concepts and everything that's being tackled. I love it, and there's so much great shit for the rest of the year. So, I give this film a 10 out of 10. I think it's a masterpiece. Everyone should go watch it. You're going to have a blast. Even if you don't think you like indie, artsy, kind of weird movie, you're going to have fun. Like, this is just a fun movie. Period. Point blank. It is beautiful. Go watch it. I hope you can go watch it in cinemas. This video will probably be out way too late. It takes me months to edit this crap. So if it's not in theaters, rent it, watch it at home, check it out on any streaming services. It deserves to be watched. It's a great time. Support these filmmakers. I want this film to blow them the hell up. They deserve to be in the Hollywood group of filmmakers that get to make, get that blank check. All right, they deserve blank check status right now, right here, today. So go check it out, and you're gonna have a great time. And maybe we can talk about some life stuff in the comments. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me because I love talking about movies, and I desperately need more movie friends. So if you could be my movie friend, that'd be awesome. Give me a like if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you liked my thoughts. And go in the description. There might be other channels or links to my other things below. And yeah, this is going to be a hard film to review. Like, to write a written review, that's going to be difficult. But anyways, thank y'all so much. I will see y'all next week. Hopefully with the... Oh god, I'll see y'all next week with hopefully another review. And then how is this version of y'all's existence going? Leave that in the comments. Alright, I'll see y'all next week. Bye!